Hi there, I'm Nancy Dash with Starfish Strength, and today I want to give you a hand and help your hands feel their best. Hands help us do all sorts of different things, right? When am I not using my hands? I talk with my hands a lot if you haven't noticed. Gripping, reaching for things. Maybe I'm just mousing and I have a finger that's really sore. Maybe I have an arthritic joint. Maybe I'm hyper flexible and I've overextended my fingers. Today, I'm gonna go over some stretching and rolling techniques that help my hands and have helped the hands of my clients feel much better. For today's demonstration, you're gonna wanna make sure that you have some sort of myofascial release tool. I'm gonna use my equanimous cork balls. I really like the texture and the amount of give that they have. I'll leave a link below if you're interested in your own set, but just make sure that you have at least a tennis-sized ball. But if you do have something a little closer to a golf ball size myofascial release tool, we'll use that too. And then just make sure that you have access to a free wall that has no pictures on it, just about chest height. So we're gonna do a couple stretches by our sturdy wall or door first. I'm gonna actually just face the wall and aim my fingers up towards the ceiling. Press my fingertips into the wall, preferably kind of right in front of my shoulders, but if that doesn't feel comfortable, you can do it a little bit lower. Pushing my fingertips into the wall, I'm gonna think kind of like I'm trying to push the wall away from me. Expand that area between my shoulder blades so you can kind of see it puff out there a little bit. And then if it feels okay, I'm also gonna push the heel of my hands into the wall. Now, if it doesn't feel okay, I'll just kind of leave my fingers in that slightly tented position. If it feels okay, then I'm really gonna push the wall away, and then I should get a stretch in my fingers as I straighten them in my wrist, down the forearm. And then also you're gonna notice in the back of your shoulders, kind of right in between. So make sure you wiggle the fingers for just a moment, and then we're gonna try that one more time, aiming the fingers up towards the ceiling, and maybe raising the hands a little higher this time if that feels reasonable. Maybe I can kind of walk them up to shoulder height, and then again, I'm gonna think about pushing the door away through the fingers, straightening the fingers, spreading them apart. And if it feels okay, I can also push through the heels of my hands. And if you're not sure what I mean that part right down there. So after you've held that for 7 to 10 seconds, we're gonna move on and do a second stretch. For my second stretch, if you think about yourself kind of being a mummy, I'm gonna point the fingers down towards the floor and flex the wrists. And then I'm gonna start to push the backs of the hands against my door or my wall. And then I'm just gonna hold for maybe 7 to 10 seconds. Some of us are gonna be very flexible in this position, and some of us aren't gonna be flexible at all. But we want this to be like, maybe a 5 to 7 out of 10, if you can kind of rate your stretch that way. So I don't wanna force this by any means. And then you can go ahead and relax, wiggle the fingers, and then you could let yourself try this one more time. You should start feeling a stretch in the top of your forearm, probably in the front of your hand. And then you may feel a stretch all the way up to the shoulder as well. So for this third stretch, we're gonna do one side at a time. If I feel comfortable with it, I'm gonna raise my wrist up as high as my shoulder. If that feels uncomfortable to raise to shoulder height, just go ahead and lower your hand a little bit, and that'll take a little tension off the shoulder. Wherever I'm at, I'm gonna point the fingers behind me, press the fingers into the wall, and then I'm gonna turn myself, I'm turning my torso, keeping my feet where they are, a little bit, and that will kind of increase the stretch all the way in the pec minor, in the front of the shoulder, into the biceps, down the forearm, and then into the wrist and fingers. Now, I wanna make sure that I can keep the fingers straight before I force any turn. So I'm gonna straighten the fingers, press into the fingers, and then slowly start to turn. And then my last step here, if I don't feel like this is quite enough stretch, is pushing the heel of the hand into the wall like I'm pushing it away. And I can really feel a stretch all the way into my chest, into my arm, down to my fingers. So after you've held that for 7 to 10 seconds on one side, we're gonna switch and do this on the other side. It's okay if you find that this is entirely different on the other side. Again, we're gonna point the fingers behind us, and then I'm gonna slowly turn. So I'm looking away from that hand. And then if that feels okay, I'm gonna push the heel of the hand down as well. Now I found a stretch all the way up the arm, into the wrist, into the fingers, making sure the fingers stay nice and straight, stay spread apart, and holding for 7 to 10 seconds. So go ahead and let yourself pause, let yourself move the fingers, maybe do a couple rear shoulder rolls to open the chest a little bit more. And we're gonna do that one more time on each side. So I'm gonna point the fingers behind me, press into them, turn away. And this time, hopefully this feels a little freer, I'm actually gonna tilt the chin down. So as I tilt the chin down, I should also get a gentle stretch on the neck. I'm not trying to force this, just looking down, you know, maybe not looking to my shoe, maybe just looking at something in front of me, slightly tilting the chin down. That might feel sufficient right now. Neck muscles are fragile and we don't want to overstretch them, so just do this part if it feels good to you. So once you've held that for 7 to 10 seconds, we're gonna switch to the other side. Going into my second side, I'm gonna point the fingers behind me. I'm gonna press the fingers into the wall. I'm gonna turn away from my hand. If I need a little more stretch, then I will push the heel of the hand towards the wall. So now that I've got that full stretch, if it feels okay for me, I will tilt the chin down and I'm gonna hold that stretch for 7 to 10 seconds. And then slowly coming out of it, I'm gonna let myself turn back, bend the elbow, and make sure you wiggle out the fingers. Give yourself a couple rear shoulder rolls. The reason that we're doing this is that act of shrugging actually has a neurological response to relax the body. So I find that that's a really helpful thing to do between shoulder exercises, shoulder stretching. Give it a try, let me know what you think. So next we're gonna do myofascial release, or some people call it foam rolling. So you're gonna want either your equanimous cork balls or your tennis size ball. So I'm actually gonna start on the forearm. I'm gonna roll kind of back and forth between the elbow and the wrist. And maybe it seems kind of weird to start here, but honestly, if you think about, you know, the tendons, the controls for my hands, actually kind of extend into the arm, you might find that you can feel a little bit in your fingers as you do this. So that's not bad. That's just a nervous system response. You just want to, you know, be gentle with this in the beginning and kind of feel it out for yourself. So, you know, it might feel good to put a lot of pressure in certain areas and not so good to put pressure in other areas. A lot of us actually grip more with the thumb and the first finger. So if I find that, you know, kind of that inner area is a little bit more sore or a little bit more stiff, that's not too surprising. We can talk in another video about how to increase grip strength and even it out in the fingers. So go ahead and let yourself repeat that on the other side. We definitely want to make sure that both sides get addressed. And it is slightly difficult to tell your body to relax when you're using both of your hands, but we're just going to do the best that we can. So I'm going to try to tell my right hand to relax even though it's my dominant hand. You might notice that on your dominant side, you just feel a little more tight in general. Usually we give our dominant side a few more chores than the non-dominant side, so that's not too surprising either. And then the second thing I'm gonna do is roll the other side of my forearms, going back and forth between the wrist and the elbow. So this is, you know, the extensors. This is the area that allows me to spread the fingers apart. So I do want to make sure that none of the fingers are really cramped while I'm doing this, so that I can just kind of feel that gentle stretch as I'm massaging this area. And if you do have, something like arthritis, so if you do, like me, have cold hands in the morning, this is another way that you could consider kind of getting them warmed up. So go ahead and let yourself switch over to the other side. Again, just doing your best to tell that side to relax and take a break. I also do this after my workouts so that I don't get really, really stiff. Sometimes I don't even realize until I'm doing this how stiff my forearms are. I might just kind of feel that one of my fingers feels uncomfortable. Just like rolling the calves can really help your feet, rolling your forearms and your wrists can really help your hands. So we're gonna move over to the hands themselves, and I'm first gonna use my tennis size ball, but then for the second hand, I'll switch over to the small ball so you can see how that's actually a slightly better tool for this. I'm gonna lay so that the fingers are spread apart on the top of my thigh. And if you wanna do this on top of a table, you could totally do that too. I'm gonna start at the wrist and I'm gonna go down the finger onto the knuckle, as long as it's not painful, and kind of go back and forth a couple times. Then I'm gonna move to the area that's kind of between the first finger and the thumb. Now I'm gonna go down the first finger, again, go all the way to the knuckle, as long as that feels good, and then go between those two fingers. Slowly working my way down the hand, just kind of taking my time. If there is a spot that feels a little tight, going to the ring finger, and then just gently going down the pinky. I went over my nice big bulgy veins. There's no damage that's happening with that. If you do start to notice that your hands get a little bit pink, or you do see your veins, that may be a sign that you're improving your blood flow. And you should find that things just feel kind of generally a little more relaxed, a little more flexible. So as promised, going into that second side, I'm going to use the smaller ball. And so again, I'm just going to go down the thumb. Now my right hand is my dominant hand, so this is the area that I probably pay the most attention to. And this definitely helps me in colder weather. So I hope that you find it helpful too. So just kind of continuing on, I'm going to go back and forth, going between the areas of the fingers and then gently going down the fingers until finally I reach that pinky area. So going back to the first hand, again, I'll use the larger ball and then I'll use the smaller ball on the second hand. So I just want to place the hand on my lap so that the palm is facing the ceiling. The fingers are pretty straight and they're relaxed. I'm going to again start at the wrist and go down the thumb. The heel of the hand, that little thumb pad, for some of us is going to wind up being an area that's a little uncomfortable. And that's just because the thumb does a lot of gripping for us. Gently, maybe pay a little more attention to that area. And then I'm going to continue on down the fingers, going between the fingers, taking my time, and then going all the way back to the base of the wrist and that heel of the hand area, which sometimes you're gonna find actually makes your fingers flex a little bit. So not unlike when the doctor taps at the base of your knee and you have that little kick out response, you might also find rolling into the base, the heel of the hand, kind of makes your fingers move slightly. That's totally a natural nervous system response, and it just tells me that using up some of this tissue is a great idea. So hopefully you can really notice the difference in your hands at this point. And then going to the second side, I'm gonna use my small ball for this one. And then if you just have a tennis ball, just continue on with that. So I'm gonna start at the wrist, go into that thumb pad area, and then down the thumb, go back into that area between the fingers, and then down the first finger, just gently back and forth at your own pace. You don't have to follow this at my pace. It just kind of depends on what feels good to your body today. So spending between 10 and 20 seconds on this a couple times a week, there's definitely a good chance this is going to improve your flexibility and the way that your hands feel throughout the week. So that's really the goal here, is to make everything feel better so that you can continue doing everything that you want to do. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found something today that you can use to feel better and seize your inner star. Feel free to comment below if there are any tips I left off that you think others would benefit from, and also let me know what topics you'd love to see me cover in future videos. If you are interested in your own equanimous cork balls, don't forget that link is below, and please feel free to check out our other videos and share this one with someone you think it might help. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. I'll help your hands feel their best.